There we go. So this time I have Sauli Niinistö. Good. Fed up with Sanna Marin. So now it's Sauli's turn. And I have already made some selecting there, but I will deselect it. And now it's still in the meeting. Okay, there we go. Now I'm in the Affinity workspace, really. So I searched for a couple of images of Sauli Niinistö, and also I tried to find big images. So first I will go and check what the document settings are here. Did I already put it to 300 dpi? Yes, I did. Good. So I don't need to do anything there. What I like to do with image photos of people is I like to retouche them or take away some well, maybe things that are there in the face, maybe like these spots on the hand, things like that. Usually when I do these changes and I show the pictures to people, they often don't even notice the changes that I've made. They are just happy with the picture. So it's kind of subtle, but still effective. Then there are less subtle manipulations that you can do for images, and we'll try out a couple of them. There was once, it's a few years ago when I had this commission for a book. It was this kind of history book of an association, and they had like been around for maybe 40 or 50 years, and they wanted to have like photos of what they had done from the various decades, and I was supposed to scan those photos and, well, make them better, because some of them were from the 1970s, for instance, and the well, colors had faded, so I had to do some recoloring and changing the colors. But and sometimes I also made the people's eyes brighter, or when there were these old-fashioned 1960s and 70s glasses that people wore, and they had a lot of reflections, because nowadays you have these on glasses they put things that they won't reflect, but that wasn't the case in the 1960s and 70s. So I had to take off the reflections, or well, I wanted to do that. But with that commission, the most difficult part was that some of the people who were in those pictures, or actually their parents or relatives, they didn't, either the people themselves didn't want to be in the pictures, or their relatives or guardians said that, okay, I don't want my child to be there at all. So I had to take them away from the, because I had not made the selection for which images would go to the book. Those were selected by somebody else. There were like maybe 200 images, or maybe more. And maybe 20 of them were such that people had to be taken away. It was relatively easy if the person was in at the somewhere else than the center. You could just use the crop tool for that and crop the people away. But then when the person was right smack in the middle, then that was a little bit more difficult, but it was possible, and nobody complained about the images later on that they didn't look natural. So that's the kind of photo manipulation I have done during the years. Anyway, we're going to try out the same thing with, or a similar thing with a picture with Sauli Niinistö and his wife. We're going to swap his wife for another lady. Anyway, let's look at Sauli and see how this image could be retouched, or is it retouched? I've never known how to pronounce that. Anyway, what I'll start with is I will need to either duplicate this background image, or I will need to duplicate the parts where I want to do some manipulation. So first of all, I think I'll start with a hand, and I'll use the selection brush tool for that. And the selection is not quite good, so I'll go here where it says refine. And we can use this refining for making the selection better. So for instance, here, where I can just tell the program how I would like to refine it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Then we also have the foreground and background too. So I go to the edge here and tell that which part I would like to have. Also, there are different ways of looking at this. Now there's the overlay. Then I could look at it from the black matte version and see what's missing from the selection and what's there. And there's the white matte. And again, I can see that there are things that shouldn't be in. And there's the black and white. So with this, I can check the insides if everything is good with there. So let's try the black matte. Then there's the smooth and feather and ramp options and the border width. So for instance, if I do a lot of smoothing, then you can see what happens to the selection. So for instance, if you have hair in your selection, then I would not recommend much smoothing there. And feathering, well, you will see how that works. Maybe for this kind of copy of the hand, the feathering would work quite well, actually. Then, if I want to include or exclude stuff more in a more detailed manner, then there's the foreground and background brush. With this, I can tell Affinity that which parts I want to have in the foreground. For instance, I want to have the fingernail in the foreground. So it's making an approximation of what it thinks I have told it to do. Or I can click here on the background and say that, okay, this here is part of the background. And now it's applying it everywhere. But, well, this is will be a simple copy of the hand, so it doesn't have to be that detailed. So I would simply copy this hand now on another layer with Command C and Command V. There you can see it. And then I deselect by Command and D. And now I can use a brush that will take these spots away. So these are quite similar to the healing brushes and of Photoshop. Partly they are a little bit smaller, I think. Especially these in painting brush too. But also I have to make it a little bit bigger. So now the brush has to know what the area around this spot is that it has to take away. So let's see if it understands me. There you go. And now I'll do the same with Sauli's face, but this time I'm just going to copy the whole layer, not just the face. Or duplicate it. There we go. So let's see, there are some warts and or some other things on his skin that I want to correct. There we go. There's another one. I think that's a vein. And I'm not quite happy with that, so I'll do it again. That's better. I could, of course, make him look a little bit younger by taking away some of these wrinkles. Let's see if that works. And I'll make the brush larger. Although Sauli is known for his wrinkly face, so if this was something really official, of course I wouldn't be doing this, but I just wanted to show you how to take the wrinkles away. And here's this wrinkle. Oh, that's not good. I made it worse. But when you do this kind of thing, it's important also that you know a little bit about human anatomy, like what is possible and what is not possible. And maybe these wrinkles here, they are called crow's feet in English. Not quite good. So you have to try several times sometimes to do this. Another way of doing this would be not by using these healing brushes and patch tools and in-painting brushes, but using this clone brush. So I'll show you how that works. Let's make another layer for that, because I want to have a little bit of fun first with the clone brush. Here we go, a new pixel layer, and I'll click here that the clone brush is non-aligned, so I'll click away the aligned. You find the same options also in Photoshop, by the way. So, and I'll change the width quite that wide. I want to give him a third eye, and after that I want to use it for good things. And the hardness is 0. That's good, because it means that it's a very soft brush. And here I want to make it not just that it doesn't take its information only from the current layer, which is empty, but the current layer and below. So now it will take its information from this layer, and of course the one where I'm in right now. So for the clone brush to work, I'll first have to tell it where in the image it should take the clone. So I will, yeah, it says here at the left-hand corner that I should click the Alt key to select the source, and that's exactly what I'm doing. So I'll put the Alt key down, and now I can see this source selecting cursor, and I will click right in the middle of the eye. Click. And now you can see that my brush is already loaded with the eye area, and I can start painting the third eye to him. I could have, of course, changed the opacity a little bit so that that it wouldn't have been quite as big as that, or I could make a mask over this eye so that it's better suited to his forehead. All right, so that was the fun part. So if you want to make really surreal things, and that's possible also with a clone brush, but I'll make this eye invisible for the while. But let's do the clone brush in an aligned manner. So I'll just clear this layer from everything. So now I want to make a copy of the eye in the exactly same place where Sauli's actual eye is, because I want to do some brightening of the eye. So this is also a quick way of copying things. So you can see here that only the eyes have been copied. And now I could add an adjustment layer. For example, I could have the brightness and contrast. Okay, and now you can see that the adjustment layer goes to everywhere, not just the eyes. So I'll have to put the adjustment layer just for into the eyes and nowhere else, or the copy of the eyes actually. So now it will only work here and nowhere else. I could, of course, create a mask now for this layer and further work on the area so that only the middle of the eyes are affected. So now there's a mask, and I will click on the mask, and I selected the brush. And now that I'm on the mask layer, I can only use the brush for black and white and gray. No color information is there at all. So it's a very soft brush. So to make this more clear what I'm doing, so what I only want to have is the middle of the eyes. This is one way of doing it. So painting the mask. So now I have a black brush, and you can see that when I'm painting the mask, it will take away what's there. I think we did this already on Monday in some form or other, these masks. And I think most of you have already seen a couple of tutorial videos where these things were explained. And you can see here in the mask layer that things are happening there. Things are being masked out. So the actual pixels are not affected, but they are just masked out of this layer, from this layer. Okay. Okay, let's go see what this really looks like. And I'll go back to the brightness and contrast adjustment. So what I could also do is change the color of his eyes, but right now I just want to make his eyes look brighter. And later today I also want to show how to make a person's eyes a little bit bigger. But if I go back to the clone brush, or the clone tool, not the clone brush tool, although it's a kind of brush, other ways of using it are that you sample some of skin where there are no wrinkles to be seen, for instance here, but where the color values and the skin looks a little bit similar to this place. So I'll take a sample from here. Like this. And then I try to take the wrinkles out, but now I see that the color doesn't really mix. I could also change the opacity here and change the width of the brush so that it samples smaller place. Okay, this works better. Also, sometimes people in photos have maybe some, well, rubbish or some small particles on their clothes. So I usually take those off as well. And here, if I would really be manipulating this image, I would also think about the stubble. Like, would I want to leave the stubble here or not? Or, well, it's not actually a stubble yet, but it's like a shade of the beard showing through. And another thing would be, of course, the hair. If the person would like their hair to be less gray, I could, for instance, with the clone brush or the stamp tool, sample some of the non-gray hair and clone it over here. That's one way of doing it. Or I could just, well, select the hair as its own layer and then do some recoloring there. But with men usually, or very often, don't care about if the gray in their hair shows or not. Also, what I could do is redden the lips a little bit, or maybe take away the wrinkles from them. There's, well, I could do it by blurring them. There's also this blur brush tool and smudge brush and sharpen. So these are not for the whole image, but for some parts of it. Let's see what a blurring brush would do. Yeah, it's also something that if you're manipulating a photo for a friend or maybe as a commission, then this is something that the person will not notice at all when you. But it has to be subtle enough, of course. Often, what I also do is use blurring for the tip of the nose and such. To make it look smoother. Okay, are there questions at this point? And by the way, as you can clearly see, I am manipulating the actual pixels, which is something that photographers are usually very wary of. They don't like it, but I'm not manipulating the pixels of the original image. And probably I would make a separate cloned layer for the mouth and for the nose if I was really manipulating this image, so that I could then make a composite and try out the different opacities on the manipulated parts, and also the layer blending modes. Yes, and with a clone brush, it's also possible to take away some offending hairs from the brow and so on. Okay. Let's have a 5-minute break. I think I need to have some water. And then I want to show you about what to do, how to switch Ninis's wife to somebody else. Okay, let's continue 11:10. Okay, hi, I'm back.
Hello.
So I had to check a couple of emails and answer to one of them. So that's why it took me so long. Anyway. Yes, before we go to the to swap Souli's wife, I'll quickly show this Liquify Persona, which is like a workspace in. Come on. In Affinity Photo. Here okay, you have to first select a pixel layer before you can go there. Right now I'm going to liquify the whole of Sauli. So it's kind of you can find this also in Photoshop, but the mesh is a little bit different, and you can find it in the filters. Oh, by the way, we're also going to talk about live filters today at some point. Anyway, now you can do these kinds of things in the Liquify Persona. Okay, this looks really weird. So it gives you a mesh for whatever you have well, selected on the layer, and then there are these different kinds of things that you can do, like punching or spinning and twirling or pushing forward. So, of course, for the tattoo task, this would maybe made more sense than the perspective warp. So, like as you can see, I'm not even trying to be realistic here. I'm just trying to show what can be done with this tool. Oh, if you use it for people, then you can make interesting caricatures of them. Okay, and then of course there's the apply or cancel button. So if you don't like what you've done, then you can always cancel it. But and then there's the freeze and thaw tool, where you can freeze parts of your image. So I think it's quite like similar to the puppet mesh and other mesh tools in Photoshop, and what you also can find in Illustrator these days. And if you like to use After Effects, then you can do the same with well, and animate it all. So that's one of the reasons I like After Effects, because it's so versatile. But we're getting away from the point. Okay, I'll cancel this, and now you know that the Liquify Persona exists. And you can do these liquefying things for some layer you have selected, or another selection that you have made, or a mask even. Okay, so let's open up the image with Saul and Jenny. There they are. There we have them. And I'll see what the, okay, it's not a very big image. As you can see, it's only 770 pixels times 1000 pixels, but it'll do for our purposes right now. And I'll just change the DPI to 300 in case I want to print this. And then I was thinking yesterday, like, who could I swap Jenny with? So then I came up with Michelle Obama, who's also being the wife of a president. So, and I went to see different images of her, and this is one that was closest resembling the image of Jenny here. She's looking in the different direction that doesn't, that's not so difficult. And then there's these pearls. But anyway, her dress is kind of open, or at least not totally closed. So this would be one possibility. Also, I looked at the pixel measures, and those were also not so bad. Okay, first of all, what I want to do here is take her head out of the picture. So first I will duplicate this layer. And I don't want to just cut her head off, but I want to clone her with the background, so that there's a smooth background where her head was, so that I can put the Obama's head there. So first I need to increase width of the clone tool. Maybe, yeah, I'm thinking if I should take Sauli on the layer of his own. That might be safe, but let's see what I can do. So it's not aligned now, and yes, the original image is here. So I'll just take the sample from here and go down. And oh, the opacity is not right. I need to put the opacity to 100. I'm just blending her with the wall. If I go too far down, then the top of her head is starting to show, as you can see. So I have to be a little bit careful here. There we go. So worse things have happened with statesman's wives. The real world. Okay, and I think the rest I can do with the smudge brush too. Make it flow a little bit more. I have to say it does help here if you can draw already, then, because when you have some drawing skills, it means that you have some well, control over what your fingers are doing. Coordination of a certain kind. Anyway, it's time to bring Michelle in. And now I need to select Michelle's head and shoulders. I hope I'm not boring you to death with this. Okay, I already did some adjustments for Michelle here, but something is not working as it should. Yes. What I had here was something, because sometimes I don't like to look at the edges of the selection when I'm doing adjustments, for instance. So what I did in Photoshop, there's something that's called hide edges, which means that it hides the edges of a selection. Of course, here with the refine button, you can see the refined edge, and but that's not really what I wanted at that point. And here with Affinity, there is this show pixel selection, and right now you can see that it says well, Control or Command 3 it will hide the pixel selection. What I have actually done is I have changed this. There was no shortcut for this. This is something I wanted to show you, by the way, so it's good that it came up. So I went to the preferences of Affinity Photo. And I searched through for the background noise, copy machine. So I searched for the selection settings. Oh no, it was in the view settings, yes. It's in the view menu here. So here I found the show pixel selection, and I changed that to Command and 3. And if you have a Windows PC, you can change it to Control, whatever you want to use. So that was one of the few shortcuts that were available. Well, it was already here at Zoom to some level, but I never used these ones, so I just took that away. Okay, so just that you know that here you can change all the keyboard shortcuts. Anyway, back to the, so right now when I'm pressing Command and 3, the selection is still there, but it's just not showing. But of course I have to remember that it's there. Okay, so what I'm now doing is making the selection of her upper body. I probably will cut this part away or mask it away when I'm in the solid image. But anyway, I'll have to refine the selection here first. So let's go to the refining place. And now I will in the matte space, I will give some instructions for the program what to do with the hairs. Sometimes this works well, sometimes it doesn't. Usually when I do it in a hurry, it doesn't work. And I can always do undo, by the way, also here. So if I'm not happy with this, I can just click Command and Z, undo. And do it again. This part to be included. Head. And now I could go to the white matte or to black and white and see that's okay. Here are things that I want to be in the foreground, definitely. This stuff. Here. Yes, that was a mistake because this part was supposed to be in the background. go back to the overlay view. Now tell Affinity that I want this to be in the background. The image, as you can see, is not very good quality, so this is easier the more pixels you have. So right now I'm not working with a lot of pixels here, which makes it kind of not so easy. Okay, and again, some refinement. There are people who are better at this than I am, but at least I can show you the basic principles. So this is foreground. Okay, and then apply. And then I will just copy this into the solar image. And now I have to resize it and make a new mask for it, of course. In Affinity, I've noticed it's interesting that if you have copied or imported an image, a pixel image there, and you resize it, if you want to keep the dimensions, you don't need to click on Shift when you're doing this at all. In Photoshop, you need to keep Shift pressed to do this. So what I'm now doing is I try to first match the size of the head, that her head is approximately the same size as Sauli's head. It's still bigger, isn't it? Yeah, and I have to make an approximation of how high her hair is. That will affect the head size also. So to see this better, I could, of course, use the multiply for the layer. Some other option to make the resizing process. Okay, there's the neck muscles and the neck. So that's how the head should be placed. And now the next step would be to mask away her shoulders and then match this part of her skin. Oh, well, actually, it's not her skin, it's her dress. So So take the stamp, the clone brush tool, I mean, to make this into the skin, and then also change the settings for lighting and such. And then there are her, well, they are originally Jenny's arms that are where the skin color is wrong. So that's something I should also do. So here, I'm just going to change this back to normal, then create a layer mask. And start painting on that mask so that it becomes better. So I always need to click on the mask to start painting on it. Otherwise it won't work. So to select a big brush first. I'm right now, by the way, not using the Wacom tablet. Here I can see that the selection around her hair is far from perfect. So what I probably should do there is to either go back to the original image and change the mask, or I could just do some painting of the hairs here, or these strands of hair. And as I'm more inclined to painting, I would probably do that. But let's see if the placing of the head is right or not. Oh, it could be better. I think it would be more natural in this position. So I would need to show the pose. As the colors don't match, the blue pearls don't look especially good with the dress. I should probably also change the color of the pearls. So that I would do by cloning this layer and just having the pearls there and changing the colors with an adjustment layer. Okay, let's change back to 100% and And layer mode back to normal. Okay, there's my son. There's his YO-todistus that he just brought from school. Yes, nice. Nice English word, YO-todistus. So I hope you excuse me. I'll have a 5 minutes break here. Okay, I'm here again. I just had to congratulate my son for getting. Anyway, this would take some time to do these changes. So I have an image where I have already done these basic mask changes. So I'll open that up and let's see what that looks like. Okay, there it is. And I've saved it as an Affinity Photo format, as you can see. So there it is. What I've done here is if I open up these layers, I've done a recolor adjustment to the hands, which I cloned or duplicated here. And also what I've done here is to see the mask. I click Edit Mask, and you can see what it looks like. Doesn't look like much. But anyway, it's there. And I did some levels adjustment. You remember where to get the adjustments. And I also put that adjustment layer inside the Michelle layer. So let's see what it has eaten. So what I changed in the levels was I made this so that her head would be better in this environment. So I thought, okay, if she has been spending time in Finland, then her skin will probably be paler. And then I looked at the overall values here and tried to match those with going to these different channels, red, green, and blue channels, and the master channel. And I also changed the gamma, which means the midtones of the image. The black level and white level are for the shadows and the bright areas, respectively. So that's what I did. Then I added an ellipse here as a kind of light source. So right now there's a very small opacity and soft light. If I bring it up, you can see what it's like. Or if I change it from soft light to normal, then you can see this. So I tried to match their color a little bit with this. Another way that I can use here would be to not have this ellipse, but use something called a live filter, which is this little symbol here. So let's try that out now. Oh, by the way, yeah, I fiddled a little bit with the pearls, but I didn't have time to change their color yet. I'm not yet proud of this, by the way. Anyway, the live filters. So now I have this layer here selected. So if you want the live filter to be on a particular layer, then that layer has to be selected. But of course, you can also move it on the layer later on. So first, it seems that the live filters only have blur, but if you go downwards, you can find all kinds of interesting things here. And that it's live means that you don't do any actual manipulation on the pixels of the image. So right at the bottom, there's this lighting, and Photoshop has it also in, I think it was filters too. And so let's try that out. So at first it looks horrible, of course, because the light is in the wrong place. You can see here where the light is now coming from. I could use the lighting only for Michelle or for both Sauli and Michelle. So there's many possibilities how this could be used. Right now, the color for the light is it's white, but I could change that, of course. But anyway, the color here in the image is also quite pale. And as you can see, there are lots of settings also for this live lighting. And you can go back to it at whatever point you want, or let's try out what it would look like if it was set both for Sauli and Michelle. And as it's a layer, you can change the opacity and stuff. There's not much actual change, by the way, here with the lighting layer, but a little bit. Yeah, it's more visible when you. Okay, it actually looks worse this way with the lighting. So maybe, yeah, so I should definitely work on the lighting still. So I created the ellipse to as a way of putting some lighting, but the other way would have been to use this live lighting. Okay, and by the way, all of these adjustment layers and lighting layers, they are, when they are inside, well, a layer, then they are acting as masks. So you can also paint them like you would paint any layer mask, which is interesting. So if I go back to Sanna Marin here, I wanted to show a couple of fun things with Sanna. First of all, there's something called the gradient map adjustment, and as you can see, I've tried it out over here already, but I could make a new one. So you can find it under adjustment layers. There it is, gradient map. So this is one of these adjustments where you think that, okay, this is worth nothing. But actually, these colors can be adjusted. So this is the dark areas, here's the middle areas, and here are the light areas. You can put them that way. So, and I'll also show you the color picker tool, how to use it here. So, okay, let's first off put the opacity here to 0, so I can see the actual colors. So I don't want these clown colors to. So first I need the lightest and the most darkest areas. So let's go with the color picker, and I'll try to find the brightest area here. The question is, should I take the skin tone or not? But let's take this one here. And then to make it actually work here, I need to click here once more. That's there. Then I'll go to the middle area and change the color picker somewhere in the middle. Maybe her lips. And then I'll click here again. And then the darkest area, which would be her clothing. And now let's see how this would look like. So let's put the opacity back to 100. Okay, not so good. Maybe if I reverse them, this is better already. Or I could put several stops here, color stops. This works for all of these tools. And then if I change the layer blending mode to something else, then this starts making more sense. For instance, like this. And here with this gradient map adjustment, I have made mask. Actually, I like this one more. Anyway, back to the light filters. There's this pinch punch, for instance, but this is also to show what the live filters can do. So there's the pinch punch. And for this, I need to set the place where it should pinch or punch things, and I want to make her eyes a little bit bigger. So first I click here to set the right place, and then I start making her eye bigger. I can change also the radius of how much is affected by the pinch and punch. Then I have done already the same thing here. Okay, that was, here we go. Yeah, so that's just a bit of fun that you can have. Okay, if you still have some patience, I wanted to show you a couple of things that you can do on an image that is, well, basically a landscape picture. So I'll open up. Okay, He's a picture from Keskustori. It was a misty morning, so I took some pictures. So there are a couple of unwanted things here. For instance, there's this guy over here. I could, of course, just crop the image so that the guy wouldn't be seen. But this is where the in-painting brush really shines. Let's just make it a bit bigger. And the brush has to know what the environment is. And before I did this, I should have duplicated a layer, and that's what I'll do now. Okay, so I won't be affecting the original pixels. And calculating. Yeah, I think it's quite good work. Also, if I wanted to get rid of the flag for some reason, I could do that. Easy job. And then there's something I'd like to do to the cyclist. I'd like to give her a little bit of like, well, a sort of motion blur. But first I'll need to get her on another layer, which I will do with a clone brush. So right now I'm just mostly combining the things that I already showed you in other ways. So now I made a new layer, and here I click that it will be aligned, and that it takes its information from the current layer and below. So here we go. And I'll copy this young woman. There we go. There she is. And what I want to do next, I want to move her a little bit and make her, give her this motion blur. Okay, there we have it under the light filters, motion blur. Let's make the blending mode a little bit different. Maybe normal would work here with just adjusting the opacity. And I would probably need one layer more with the woman in place and the motion blurred woman behind her. That would probably work best. And I could put a little bit more other kind of blur there as well. Okay. So that's something we could do. We could also put things here that don't really belong and then change the, with the adjustments and the blurs, change them so that they do look like they belong, and also changing the lights and so on. But I think I'll go to the course Moodle page, and I'll write the day tasks for today. Okay, this is not the right course. Okay, it's doing this, but it still lets me in. I don't understand. Okay, turn editing on. So, photo manipulation. And the reason I'm using forums instead of assignments is because when you upload your tasks into the forum, you can see what everybody else has done. And I think that's really important. And that's one of the reasons why we are looking at the day tasks in separate sessions. And do we have the 29th? Yes. So I have two tasks. Okay, so basically the same thing that I did with Sally and Jenny, but you can, of course, take some other politician. You don't have to take Sally and Jenny. But anyway, an image where you can see the politician with their spouse, and then another image where you have switched that spouse. It can be just the head, or it can be the whole body. You could have yourself there as the spouse, or somebody else, someone who is unlikely. I don't know how unlikely it would be that Sauli and Michelle Obama would would marry. I don't know either of them. So. Okay, task 2. Okay, a composite image of a landscape. So you can make it look surreal or fantastical, or you can make it realistic, but blend those elements in a convincing way. And okay, and I need to check that you can upload bigger images than 5 megabytes. There we go. Okay, any questions at this point? Otherwise we would meet at 3 o'clock again and see what you have been able to do so far. They don't have to be ready by then.
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm. Good. Okay. A thumbs up from Kirsi. So I'll save this and return to call so you can see it. And by the way, I added this YouTube video and color harmony as a resource. I think it's very good watching. And during the weekend, I'll try to put some more tutorial videos that I've found interesting for you. Oh yes, by the way, I almost forgot. This is a task for you. For the weekend. So as one or several links to books, websites, other on visual design. So that I'm not the only one who's sharing information here, but you, but all of us do it. So I don't pretend to be the one and only person who knows about things. But maybe I'll to the right. Should this have some sort of deadline? Maybe the 3rd of June. Yeah. That's next week, Wednesday, isn't it? The 3rd of June, is it? Should be. Anyway, so if you don't have any other questions, then we will meet at 3 o'clock and see what you have done. And I will stop the screen sharing and also stop the recording.